Hey guys, it's Disaster Area here, back with another Advanced 50 Immortal game. As I don't have any further plans beyond this one at the moment, it really depends on other great games being played. And this one, Crab Rage, is a bit of a different beast from the previous game. Uh, Warn you in advance, I'm sure the video link will probably tell this as well. It's a long game between myself and PK Leech again. And called Crab Rage because there's a Crawdaunt and it does stuff. I'm going to go into both of the teams here because why not? I think it's a good way to start. Giving some context around like the tier, what's going on, what these teams do. So the first team, showing my team, no Crawdaunt. It's PK Leech who brought one. And basically, this is a balanced team. I'm sure you can probably sort of tell from the fact that a lot of these are fairly bulky Pokemon, and the real sort of driving offensive force is the combination of Hypnosis Golduck and then Ampharos, which pressure similar Pokemon like Muck and Lantern together. But beyond that, it's meant to sort of be like extremely defensively solid and not give any room really for spikes to go up more than a layer at least. But it's very it can be a little bit slow to get going as well. Ampharos is a bit of a slow Pokemon, and so on. Just yeah, it's a slow, solid team. What we see from PK Leech, obviously, we don't know going into the battle what we've brought. But the team that's brought by PK Leech is this one, and here we see the Crawdaunt, and this features a couple of the sort of techniques that are quite common in ADV 50, but really rare in other tiers. Well, in particular, this has Subpass Firo, which is I think it's pretty unique. The way in which like Subpass is used, because the spikers in this tier can't phase. They don't have raw. Fortress doesn't learn raw. There's no Skarmory. And furthermore, Fortress is like pretty passive, and I mean it can like toxic, but mostly it just carries hidden power fire. It could carry explosion potentially. So quite a few Pokemon can set up a substitute on it. But Firo doesn't really have a direct way of abusing it. You could go subtoxic, but really the power in it lies in combining it with Baton Pass, pattern passing substitutes to other threats. And this team, it combines that with Crawdon, which is an SD sweeper. Even though it lacks physical stab, it's the fact that it has good mixed attacking stats, plus the fact that it stabs hit like every normal resist, is still pretty useful. And even though as a Pokemon it checks almost nothing, it really doesn't check much at all in this tier. It's a bit too frail. Typing just doesn't quite do the trick. But with the right support, which this team gives it, it can be an absolute monster. It's also partnered with a very classic paralysis core of Lantern, Vileplume, and Clefable, which is extremely solid. And then paired with Aggron as well to deal with the Kadabra weakness that paralysis spam teams are liable to have as well. Crawdon doesn't check Kadabra unless it's paralyzed due to it carrying Thunder Punch. But yeah, that's the core of how this team works. And Toxic's used on Aggron because like ground types like Whiscash like to switch into it. So that's the team. This one was actually built by me and Darth Tyros together. I think we built around the SD Crawdon idea. And yeah, Crawdon, it is a funny Pokemon because it shouldn't be that good. On paper, it's really not that good. It's other Pokemon just look so much better on paper. Like, doesn't check much of anything. It's slower than Misdreavus. I mean, its speed is pretty average overall. It doesn't have a physical stab, but in practice, it can surprise you, and that's really what this game's about. Is how the crab rages, how it surprises us. one thing as well to note is that neither team has spikes. So that sets us up for a long game. In particular, I mean, it is funny because like there's only so many styles where you really would drop spikes in this tier. So in terms of on offense, Rain and Sun don't necessarily run spikes, but they're offense, and yeah, you kind of get some like bad and pass abusing offenses that will drop spikes. But like Stall will usually carry spikes. Just Fortress is just that good, and Balance as well, unless it's paralysis based, tends not to as well. And since they're both right to a degree paralysis based, the Golduck team less so. It's just sort of a bit of a slower playing one, but there is like Thunderwave, Ampharos, and stuff on it. So point is that neither team having spikes sorts of sets this up for like a real tug of war, which is exactly the what we get here. Yeah, just pause it here. Why is the pause button not working? There we okay. Good enough. Good enough. Pokemon Shadow annoying me. Maybe I'll put the speed on a little bit slower or something. But yeah, just the lack of spikes gives this game potential to really go a long way. To start off with, it's really, of course, we're just like scouting each other's teams. With the Golduck lead, I could be using something pretty offensive, to be honest. But he has the best counter in the tier. It's also about in our current tournament, it's got about usage of about a third of all teams use it. And it's the only Pokemon to really single-handedly beat every Golduck variant. And even then, it's not perfect, but it's... You need a lot of luck with Golduck generally to get through Lantern is the thing. With like Hypnosis accuracy, Hydro Pump accuracy, Thunderbolt, just doing a lot, crit, sleep turns, just all of that stuff. Just, it all plays in Lantern's favor. Golduck kind of has to get a lot of things going for it to really beat it. Solo. But sleeping it is good for this team, as then like Ampharos is a bit more dangerous, is the idea here. And yeah, turn one. Oh shit, we're gonna put it to I can't deal with it being slower. Turn one, the Aggron is forced out, and it's a pretty clean opportunity to Hypnosis. I mean, fundamentally with Hypnosis, what you want to do is you want to generate as many opportunities as you can to actually use it. So when you've got those 4 switches, you go for it. You just kind of have to, because the 60% accuracy is just not just that it's not good, but it's a case of like the risk reward is just not there for like, you just can't like stay in with Golduck against Lantern and go for a Hypnosis. Like, I don't know, if you had like Venomoth against an Aggron in the lead situation, which is something that happens, the sleep powder's 3, it'll hit 3 and 4 times, and then Aggron can one-hit KO Venomoth, and then you're like, well, maybe. But Golduck can generate a lot of pressure, and its sleep move isn't that accurate. So yeah, it's about just generating those opportunities, especially on like a slow-playing team like this. It can switch into Lantern for a very long time, and that's sort of what we get here. In terms of the counterplay, we've got Muck. I don't know why my click is just like not really working as I want it to. Let's go back to the previous turn. Yeah, so some Muck switches in. It's the team's answer. And then comes Clefable. So like Muck here as well, like you can see, not immediately easy to make progress. This thing typically, I mean, this one carries like, if I just check the team import real quick, it is the Fire Blast Protect set. Well, Curse is pretty standard. Offensive Mucks on like much more aggressive teams than this will run Focus Punch Explosion. But otherwise, you see like Curse, Sludge Bomb, Fire Blast, so it's not like Spike Spade, and it also hits like Steelix and does something to Aggron and can fish for burns even against Steels, which is something kind of funny, but it's legitimately something you see and so on. But yeah, Protect is just like a great move for gaining HP, especially without Sand being in the tier and so on. Stalling weather turns as well. So let's get back to the battle. I'm going to try and not spend forever on each turn, because this game's a long game, as I'm sure the timestamp probably shows. Clefable, just, thinking like on a team like this with what's revealed, probably the T-Wave support set probably has Encore, could have Sing, could have something funky like Counter or Wish or whatever. It's a lot of potential, but I think probably I'd stay in a Sludge Bomb or something. Or okay, I go to Altaria, scout it. I'm gonna let this just like play out a little bit, sort of establish things. You can sort of protecting here to see what it does. Just burn a little bit of PP. Don't have like Golduck is really not, as you can see, it took 56% from Rock Slide, so it's not really the greatest aggro on switching. So that kind of prevents in this game Muck really just like going ham and just like trying to spam Fire Blast to wear down aggro on Fish for a burn, something like that, which it can do. It does like Fire Blast does about 30% to aggro on, which is not loads, but with like the chance of the burn, chance of the crits, it's substantial. But yeah, this team really isn't able to pressure with Muck that much when there's an aggron, because it doesn't switch into it that well, and it's just taking the opportunity to come back in with Golduck, go for sleep again, and I get it, but I get it on the Clefable, which is an interesting aggressive choice there, knowing that I'm going to go for the Hypnosis. So now my Golduck really can't make progress, and it's up to me to sort of switch here and find another way through. And Ampharos is like really the tool to do it, since I know that Lantern's coming in. I can trade status with it, like paralyze each other, and then I can sort of like trying to bust through with HP Grass, and it's just not that easy to defend against. But the Clefable's pretty good at it, sadly, especially since this is. On this particular team, the Clefable has max HP, max special defense. On that team now, you wouldn't run that, and I don't run that anymore because of Mixed Tauros. But at the time, we didn't really appreciate just how good that Pokemon was and how like a lot of teams like this one were actually a bit weak to it. So that is unfortunate for me. That's how it goes. But that makes it even harder for Ampharos to make progress, even with like the Clefable asleep. It's sort of like you'd almost rather it be like paralyzed with like the Lantern asleep maybe, and then just like blasting off T-Bolts against it, because it's just gonna like Thunderbolt only does about 30% to Clefable with that much special defense investment. So basically, sort of the story here is it's hard for me to break through. But interestingly, he decides he doesn't even want Lantern paralyzed. It's just an interesting choice. I don't think it would have been that bad to get it paralyzed. It would still check Golduck very well. But maybe it was just a case if he didn't want to 1v1 with Ampharos straight away. It was fine taking the paralysis of the Vileplume. It's pretty slow anyway. And time to get off a sleep powder. But obviously, I've got Altaria and I've got Muck. So I'm not too scared. Fire Blast because I don't want aggro switching in, but yeah, he just goes for the sleep powder. It's Spadef Vileplume, so it can take. It's by no means a Muck answer because it really can't hurt it, but it can happily sleep powder all day. That Fire Blast did like 31%. Sludge Bomb probably does a bit more, but not that much more. It's neutral, and Vileplume's pretty bulky. So yeah, that was the play there. Sort of like the first sort of part of this match is really just us like scouting each other's teams out, understanding what's going on. I sort of can't see it here. Maybe if I drag this across, you can see I'm just sort of like bit of a different beast when we're playing with slow playing teams. I think is what I said. Let me just live editing. Okay, that will do. There we go. I just wanted to show you. There's a message. Saying that the game is really different here. You saw the other game was like a bit faster, and you can end up with games that are sort of like sub 30 turns or whatever, with like both brought offense. But yeah, the way that like his team works is interesting. That he didn't decide to go to Aggron, keep some information for himself later, but instead wanted to go to Firo and set up like a sub pass. But it does provide a lot of pressure on this team. And I decide to take the damage on Firo, which I don't know. It's complicated. Like, those are both pretty big chunks of damage. The difference is, like, Altaria can heal it off pretty easily with Rest and Natural Cure. For Firo, that damage is relatively permanent, but with leftovers and everything, it just doesn't. And it not 2-hit KOing, just barely. It's an interesting choice. But I'm like, I need to damage this thing somehow, don't I? So. And yeah, he goes for Pattern Pass there rather than pushing with Drill Peck, which he could have. I'd switch to Ampharos because there's like not really much chance that he would HP ground there. If he Drill Pecks and I get static on him, then all of a sudden the Furo's in a really bad spot. Maybe I could have done that a turn earlier, but like this game, you won't really see any major mistakes, which is plus like this slow playing team. So it's going to be like a really long game because nobody fucks up, really. And it's interesting seeing sort of a happen where it's like the most you get is like those small mistakes, like in chess, which sort of like maybe be like an inaccuracy. You'd sort of describe it as like that's the most that really goes wrong. It's just like those little inaccuracies. So you get to see sort of how does it build up? How does like the team's inherent matchup play out? And yeah, when you've got like a long game like this, it's kind of hard to say one way or the other that one team's really favored. It's interesting that I decided not to like Thunderbolt there. I probably should have. Yeah, criticizing myself here that I needed to put more pressure on with Ampharos early on, but it's hard to know. I guess at this point I just really was playing pretty conservatively, just scouting him out and feeling like, well, I can play this all day, which I could, but it wasn't the right way necessarily. Yeah, I do think that I sort of messed up actually, but here, if we just take a look at the messages I was sharing. It's PK wasn't like happy with like his level of play necessarily, but saying sort of hard to make progress is sort of how I describe this game. And then this is, I think we're sort of getting into the point where things like are really starting to kick off, and there's the way that this game felt to play was like just this massive like tug of war. Like every turn, like one of us would get momentum, and then like only have like a turn or two, and we're like, what could you do with it before it's handed back to the other player? Yeah, I'll just scroll through this. Yeah, so let's go back to the game screen and carry on. And yeah, Meganium is pretty exploitable, and we're seeing that here with Furo being able to come in. It's kind of like a roll to do hit KO with Hidden Power Fire, but even at like 50%, you just don't want any part of that. If you're not leech seeding it as it comes in, you're forced out. And the fact that Furo can like do that all day, even after taking that hit from Altaria, does give something to play for. But look, I managed to get this is big. I get the paralysis on the Furo, so just said that Furo had an awesome matchup advantage, but instead of playing it like really conservatively with like the sub pass and just pushing that advantage, he went directly for the offensive, what caught out a bit. So that was sort of like the first sort of like bigger mistake, I'd say. But even so, we're still a long way to go. Revealed Pokemon, like a Pokemon asleep, a couple of Pokemon are a bit worn down. That's kind of where it's at, and it takes it's hard to make like the damage stick as well. Like one thing that the really sort of impacted things as well is like with the paralysis, like not every attack is going off in this game, and you've got leftovers on every single Pokemon pretty much. In fact, yeah, every single one. Um, so especially if your attack's not doing much, or you're throwing out status move, or whatever, like both teams are just like regaining that health back. So I was putting the pressure on here with Ampharos, with Fire Punch. The worst that this Vileplume can do back to me as well is like to Stun Spore. But like Fearow was forced out, so it was sort of a case of, well, how did I want to punish him, and I wanted to just like Fire Punch so he couldn't like come in and comfortably just like Stun Spore me. So we'll see like whether he goes to Lantern here, but I think this is where he goes to Clefable, potentially, or no, he goes to Aggron. So early on, there's definitely like some of these mistakes. I didn't capitalize on this one correctly. It needed like Fire Punch again because Aggron can't really take Ampharos's attacks too well. But I didn't end up catching any of those mistakes, and he figured out that the Clefable is actually the way to go against this. And Altaria, you can see mixed Altaria, and this is a huge turn. I couldn't switch into Rock Slide here, which is kind of embarrassing. Oh, I had Mangini. I'm not sure. Actually, what's the? Yeah, I think this was a case of I thought that I really had something with like the end game here. I guess I was like already thinking about it on turn 20. If we just take a look at like the team and refresh what our last is on here, it's a Taunt Toxic Aggron, and damn phone. I put the phone in the bathroom so because I couldn't figure out how to like just turn off all the notifications. So I was like, fuck it. But probably somebody like messaging me useful stuff on Discord, or like Messenger or whatever. But yeah, I was thinking probably thinking like how good Aggron looks here, maybe, or maybe Ampharos as well. But that was like a huge risk, and I made it. I made a big mistake there as well, but I got lucky. I went for Earthquake, and it really doesn't do that much. So yeah, there's some mistakes. Obviously, it's sort of like in retrospect, when you like go back and analyze a game, especially when you're like in depth like this, you pick up on those mistakes more. And what's good here? I talked about my thought process, so I'm sure you can like read it on screen. I'm struggling to like read while I'm talking. It's gonna take a moment. But yeah, basically, yeah, I was thinking about the end game. Basically, I was sort of like, well, Taria is not actually that important as well. Which is kind of an interesting thought, but yeah, I was like, well, Ampharos can put in work afterwards, which is true. Yeah, I think like sort of my game plan really was I wanted Ampharos to sort of pressure, force out the Aggron, and then get the T Wave and the HP Grass off on Lantern, and force some real damage, and then sweep with Golduck afterwards, which was almost a viable strategy. But I think sleeping Clefable actually like really puts a stop to it, even though it's asleep. He just kind of needs to find the right opportunity to sort of like wake it up. But with that much Spadef, it can do it on Altaria, it can do it on Meganium, it can do it on Ampharos, it could even like really do it on like Golduck. And I've got a Sleeping Muck, so that Clefable is gonna be hard for me to kill this game. And I decided to keep going on that like route of play, even though I think now it's like inaccurate. And he pivots around it with Thero to bring in Lantern, which doesn't want to take an Earthquake. But anything else is fine. It threatens to one-hit KO back with Ice Beam. And I bring in Meganium, even though it's like weak to Ice Beam, it still takes it fine. But problem with like Meganium just like being so passive as well is like the most I can do is I can do some good damage with like Giga Drain, but that's about it. Or I can like Leech Seed, but it can't really afford to fit any permanent status. I mean, Toxic is like, sure, Toxic sounds nice, But like Muck is its main switch in. Like that's like the biggest switch in. Like Golbat and Vileplume and so on are all great as well. Um, and then Paralysis, it just can't paralyze anything, and Sleep has got Grass Whistle. So realistically, it can't do anything more than Volatile status, which I think is a bit of a problem for it. That's like a bit difficult to work around on some teams, but it is very tanky. As you see here, just like taking nothing from the Ice Beam, and I do get a Giga Drain off, and like that's valuable chip. And I want to. This game is sort of all about for me on my end is chipping Lantern. I would note as well, like with 24 turns in, I called it Crab Rage, but there's not been a crab yet, and maybe you get a sense this is going to be a long game. But yeah, just I keep pushing, and I at least see there because I don't want Furo to come in and try and like give it like a bit less of a play-by-play and just let you sort of appreciate this like this tug of war is going on. The chat a bit more there discussing we were discussing like the HP Fire roll against the Furo. But yeah, every time that I go into Meganium, like there's just all of these like different dynamics. Like his Pokemon force something, I get like a bit of damage, and then mine sort of does something back. So Lantern forces in Meganium, Meganium forces in Furo. Furo, which is paralyzed, like can bring in like Altaria or Ampharos, and then in turn, like Altaria and Ampharos will bring in Clefable or Lantern, depending on like the move used. And I think at this point he has to go to like Clefable. Really, he's run out of like other options, and can Dragon Claw here, and yeah, here he goes. But instead of like Dragon Clawing, I just rest, and this gives the Clefable even more opportunity to wake up, which in retrospect was actually like a really big failure. I needed to keep the pressure up on this Clefable. Yeah, the chat here is interesting. Oh my, I left it over on the chat. Jesus Christ. I'm so bad at this. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm like the worst. It's every game. You've kind of seen like the chat at least. If we go, well, let's let it play out a little bit. Yeah, sort of discussing how like even though Hidden Power Fire like might break the substitute, like Drill Peck does so much. Subpass is like so threatening. Even if I'm like predicting him to like stay in and HP ground or whatever, like it's not. It would be bad risk reward. Showing in the cat that like Drill Peck does 56 to 66 to me. Just like the fact that HP Fire can break the substitute doesn't really matter when I'm threatened with a 2-hit KO, and every time that I predict it right, I'm still in like as bad of a spot, just like slightly better, even with it like kind of low HP. So I'm just best off playing safe, and I'm sort of described how like this is something that like I think like a lot of people probably watching this are newer players. Like I say that as somebody who's been playing for 8 years. Competitive Pokemon in general, not this metagame specifically, but is that the I'm gonna put the chat back on the screen, then I'm gonna put it like away again afterwards when I'm done. Is that prediction in Pokemon is not just about can you predict what your opponent's gonna do, and like that's a lot of fun. It's like really fun to be like, oh, I'm in your head, and nothing you do, you can't escape me, and like that feeling of being in someone's mind is really fun. But what's key isn't just that about like wanting to feel that way. Besides the fact that it can go wrong, it's about like the ritual. Like to play Pokemon well, you don't need to outpredict your opponent that much. Just like it's really about picking your moment when their move is all but forced, and then you can get like a big advantage out of that. That's where prediction is just that's when it's key. But predicting that, oh, I can stay in HG5 because I think he's gonna like substitute or HP ground with his Furo here. Like, no, I can't go for that, especially with, like, a paralyzed Meganium. Like, no, I need to respect the threat, even if, like, or maybe I'll get it right. It doesn't matter. So yeah, when you're predicting your opponent, much as it's fun, what's important is like the risk reward. It's like how much do you really get out of predicting it right? How much are you losing when you get it wrong? If it's bad risk reward, it doesn't matter if you know what your opponent's going to do. Just you have to play it safe a lot of the time. And obviously, like people's playstyle varies, and you'll sort of find out where yours is over time, like just like how aggressive you are. And I think the confidence with the tier as well, like really changes that because like in RBY when I was sort of in my peak there, like I was an extremely aggressive player and use that to try and control like the game and put like offensive pressure on the opponent and be the aggressor. Whereas like in advanced OU, I'm just not anywhere near as confident, even though I'm like way better at it now than I used to be. I'm still just like not that confident. I don't make many like active predictions against the opponent because I'm just like not that confident and is not necessarily like my default style, but like a lot of players do really enjoy like this very flashy prediction heavy play style, which is also a lot of fun to watch, especially when it works. But it can if you don't do it well, you're just better off not predicting almost. So no, I'm not saying you can't be like a prediction heavy player and be successful. It's just that it is important to pick your moments. Fundamentally, it matters more than just predicting for its own sake. So yeah, bit of a tangent, getting like some Pokemon lessons here. But yeah, it's sort of into like the next stage of the game really here, aren't we? Where like everything's revealed and it's like Thunderbolting and like that moment like holy crap, the Thunderbolt did nothing. He wakes up like early, but I think even if he'd had like a 5 or 6 times sleep, like there wasn't really a problem. So now with like the Clefable awake again, it to find like a way to pressure it, which is like really hard actually with this team with like a fully specially defensive Clefable. I kind of like maybe I need to use Muck, but that's asleep. I don't have Heal Bell because I'm a mixed Altaria. But Golduck is in a better spot than it was before. Lantern's at 55, Valplume's at about 50, but his team is like really well prepared. Like Press to Spam, I think, just in general, is like really well prepared by default for Golduck, which is like a big like plus side to the style like, of this kind of team. It's really well prepared for Golduck, and as we've seen, like Ampharos as well isn't really able to put in much work. So yeah, feels like I've got a tough matchup here, but see if I can like put on the pressure and go somewhere with this. But really, like my tool at the moment has to be Golduck. I need to be forcing with it. I need to get like another Hypnosis. If I need to like Hydro into Lantern and chip it down, and make progress that way. But right now, I've got this Aggron that I can't switch into. I've got a paralyzed Meganium, and it's like almost. You see there, I'm at 42% now. The last rock size did 32 and 38, so I'm not quite in KO range, and I get Overgrow if he goes for another. But if you've played Advanced AU, you know that rock size for 30% chance is a pretty big chance, especially when combined with paralysis. So I'm not in a good spot here at all. And in the end, he decides not to force it, and I go for a protect here. But he goes to Clefable instead, and doesn't want to get like Overgrow Giga Drain with like how low is Aggron. It's not that it's like really low, but if you do that, then I mean, to be honest, I didn't really even have like a big threat that would take advantage with like Marcus Sleep of like that Aggron being low. But I guess he's just like opted against it. It's like perfectly reasonable. Like maybe it could even KO the Aggron, but Clefable's like also there's nothing this Meganium can do to it besides Leech Seed, which I do get off, and I basically don't take any damage from Seismic Toss pretty much due to Leech Seed and leftovers. But yeah, let's just keep going. and see how I like try and keep like pressure. This is like one of those like moments like the Meganium and Vileplume thing is so weird. They both have HP fire, and it does like a bit of damage, but not a lot. And they can't leech seed each other. Meganium's got protect as well, and it's like I'm like protecting here, even though like we're both paralyzed, because I just like need a little bit more HP so I can just like keep on checking aggron before I like go to Altaria. But it's Altaria, it's not going to put in any work with that Clefable there. So you know, like Fire Blast, maybe fish for a bone or something, but it's not. It's tough. Like Altaria can kind of like sit versus Clefable as well because it can't really do anything back. But yeah, I'm just kind of like floundering a bit at this stage in the match. I want to stay this Clefable. And then like that sequence earlier with like Meganium and Vileplume, like the Vileplume got health back, and all of a sudden it's like nearly at full. It's got Giga Drain as well, and you know Fire Punch does like a bit, but then with like the Giga Drain recovery leftovers, and it's like I'm all of a sudden like at a stage where I'm still like really struggling to make progress. Like when that Clefable was asleep, things were looking good, but now it's just like I can't break the Clefable. I can't get an entry point for Aggron for Golduck, but in comes Aggron there, and I wonder like whether that was the right play or not. But I didn't want to like risk Golduck to like a Thunder Wave, I guess, and with Vileplume at that health as well, like Hypnosis isn't safe. But yeah, this team doesn't actually switch in too well to aggro, which is like I guess like a weaker point of it, and it's Taunt Toxic's like the standard aggron because ground types like to switch in so you want to poison them, and you don't want it to be Spike's bait, and you don't really love like Fire Blast, so you got Taunt, and then yeah. Rock and ground, perfect neutral coverage. You could even try Iron Tail potentially, but you kind of want to like not let substitute use as fish. I guess kind of like the main thing, and like there's certain things that coverage hits, like Mantine, that isn't hit by Iron Tail. Really, it's yeah. Anyway, it gives me a chance to sort of like push a bit, and you sort of see me trying to break, and this Aggron's like scary. It's scary. And then interestingly, he decided that he wanted to set through there. I'm not sure why I did that. Why I didn't just like rock slide again there. I was making progress, but that's the play I made. Maybe I'll discuss it, but what I wrote was that I was covering a pivot to Aggron. Yeah, I really should have pushed there. And I Ice Beam against the Vileplume, which is like now weakened, and well, no, sorry, Ice Beam against like the Furo with like Vileplume now weakened and stuff. So go for Hypnosis, and I think I do go for it here because I'm feeling in like a bad spot, and I do get it. But he stays in with Lantern, goes for it, and I don't risk it with Golduck. He could have gone Clefable with T with Encore, then like Golduck's not doing anything as well to that. But that's sort of like why I switched out. I was like, I need to put pressure now, and yeah, give and take. So we're 57 turns in, and nothing's fainted. And Crawdon hasn't even switched in yet. But it's just this feeling like every turn was like crucial, and how am I going to break Clefable? Is Aggron going to like put pressure on like, well, who's Aggron's going to put in more work? We both have like Aggrons, and that little sequence with like Golduck earlier, like this is something else like about this tier, especially when there aren't spikes up, that's like pretty interesting. It's just how just like not having sand as well, you can go for a sequence like maybe like Golduck didn't really achieve anything, but it healed like 20% or whatever in leftovers, and then all of a sudden that rock slide from Aggron that was 2-hit KOing even through lefties, I can switch in again, I can put pressure on him again. But yeah, I'm not. In retrospect, I'm sort of like looking at this like, was I fixed on the wrong dynamics like at different points in the game? It's just so like subtle. Like, how am I making pressure? I think I was just like felt like I couldn't make progress against Clefable. I needed like to get a Hypnosis off, and then like spread some stages with Ampharos, and then like really go in with Aggron. You see, with like half this, well, like two of those Pokemon are paralyzed. On my side, I've got two paralyzed Pokemon, a sleeping one as well. Like, there's been like a bit of work done, but you look at this, like, there's not really been much that's permanent. To the extent that has been on his end, but that Clefable, that healthy Clefable, I can't break it. Just sort of like sitting there and just this intense game. Also, I'm like sorry if you keep like hearing like my phone going off. Like it's annoying me. That's like keeps going off. But anyway, in comes the Crawdont finally. Now let's assess things. Like on his end, Fearo's like weakened. It's fairly useless, but it still punishes Meganium. It's almost more of a sack. And the Vileplume's a bit weakened. The Aggron's a bit weakened. But in comes Crawdont, and on my end, Altaria's a bit weakened, but it can heal that off potentially. Meganium's a bit weakened as well, and like, Mug's asleep. And the thing is, the thing that really gave him the advantage of this game was like not just that like I couldn't really break Clefable, but the Crawdont is a Pokemon that will always be able to make progress, and it's I've got a Meganium that's like one of the best answers to Crawdont, but it's paralyzed because he's got like a frigging lantern. So of course it is. It's a free return here. Does it do like I really in retrospect I could have switched in like Meganium here. If I get like crit though, then like all of a sudden the game is just completely over almost. And then return takes something. So he's got a Pokemon that can pressure me every time I like bring in my sleeping Pokemon. I wanted to like wake up Mark because look, his Aggron's low, and all of a sudden it's like a tool to break through him. But I need to withstand like the Crawdont that's now like causing me problems. And I decide instead to sack Altaria, which in retrospect I don't think was the right move. Maybe I should have gone Meganium, but now I'm like, well, Meganium's health is like really crucial, and to keep it healthy. But like every time it comes in, then like Fearow can come in, and it's just this constant push and pull. And there comes in Fearow as well. So as I said, but then like I get to bring in like Ampharos or Golduck or Aggron, and then I'm putting pressure. But how much pressure is it? There's constantly every turn. Like at this point, we've kind of got a sense of what can answer what. How can I handle like each of these threats? What's threatening on his team to me? What's threatening on my team to him? And like now that we're conscious of that, then that's sort of when the game's like really getting going, and we're able to feel like this constant tug of war. I'm gonna keep saying that, aren't I? I should probably like come up with like other words, but I want to wake up this Muck. Look at that as well. Do you remember before? Lantern was at 55% at one point. It's at full. It's at full. My Golduck was at full as well for a moment, but just like the power of like the leftovers recovery over this game, it's like you barely notice it until like all of a sudden you're like, wasn't this at like half health? And it's just like completely at full. And it's like, where's my progress gone? In comes Muck, and the funny thing is that actually even though like Aggron's like kind of low, I mean, Fire Blast is 2-hit KOing there, but Clefable like actually is a check to it as well. I mean, I can poison the Clefable maybe with like Sludge Bomb, but it's just regular poison. Like it does like 30%, and I can't curse up because it's got Encore. So, do I let it get paralyzed and then it checks Vileplume then? But then I need something to help me get through Clefable, and going for a Sludge Bomb here just won't really do anything. And yeah, I kind of need. I think we'll see if I go for it. But I should really be. My game plan at this point should probably be. I forget that recovery is to go in like with Ampharos and try and paralyze something new. But that Vileplume, which he ended up taking, let's see with, even though it's not a great answer to Ampharos, it does the trick. And then I'm like, well, actually no, let me pressure with Aggron again, and like go for Toxic, and it's tug of war. Like I'm like, I mean, make this like flashy play, and there we go. And there's like the second sack, and we're 80 turns in. We've lost a Pokemon each, and in comes Crawdon as well. And it's just like I got this KO, and then like that happens, and yeah, look at that. That return does like 32, so I really barely could have switched in. Maybe with Meganium early, it was like a bit risky. So yeah, it's just like this. How do you like maintain this advantage? And I need to like heal Meganium up. It's just like not quite healthy enough, and like going for protect, and I need it to be at like 60% roughly to be able to like heal up on Crawdon, and I go for a Giga Drain there, and then like there's a Rock Slide, and I can't survive another one, and then all of a sudden like that Crawdon's really a threat. And then, like I told you, like this Pokemon is just not that good on paper, but like in practice, like it's what's made it from his team just being like completely passive to having something to really push for, to put the pressure on me rather than sort of letting me just like sit around and eventually just like win with Muck. Another big turn 90 here, and we have a trade in status. And this trade is interesting. My Aggron was like really pretty threatening to his team, but Crawdon does like punish it nicely, and you know we can like trade things a bit with like his own Aggron as well, and like his Clefable is so threatening to me. So we end up making this trade where my Aggron is like a lot less like powerful, and in retrospect, like directly after the game, this felt like a memorable mistake. But we've seen like earlier, like all of these other like things that were sort of like maybe decided wrong. But there's like this felt after the game like a mistake. But like when you look at it here, it's like I poisoned Clefable, and now like I actually have like a game plan with Mark and everything like that, and everything pushing. But at the same time, my team said Altaria is gone. This is paralyzed. Mark, like Golduck's the only thing that outspeeds that Crawdon. All of a sudden, that's like really threatening. It's really threatening. Crawdon's like not very especially bulky, so Golduck can do a lot to it, but it's not switching in ever. And in the end, I'm like trying to. It's not just like I could have like tried to be forcing with Muck there, but then I'm like maybe like concerned about like the follow up with like things like okay, so say that I Fire Blast the Aggron there, he comes in, saying like about 40%, takes like 30, then there's like lefties. What am I switching into? I've got a Golduck and I've got a Meganium, and neither of them are healthy enough to switch in. I need to get my Meganium held out. So even though I could have like applied pressure there, it just like wouldn't have worked out for me. But maybe I could have gone for like a Curse and then like Fire Blast, but then it's like a 3-hit KO. Earthquake still does like a ton. It's just like just need to get this health back on Meganium. But like, every time I do this, then like I can't make progress like Ampharos and with Golduck because like this Vileplume just gets health back as well, and I'm just like dancing trying to heal up Meganium. It's like still not healthy enough to handle Crawdon. It's still not in a good spot. Aggron's still a threat. Yeah, it's just one of those games that was like it was a bit more fun to play it than it is to watch it back, because as you can see, it's just like it's going very quickly or very slowly. Both. It's a long game. Like on a turn by turn, like you can analyze these little things going on. You can if you want to, but each turn is crucial. But when you're looking at it back, it's like you can't analyze every turn like it's crucial. You got to like pick out like what moments mattered. Like that trade in status like mattered, but waking up Muck mattered. Like sleeping Clefable and like what I was able to get out of that mattered. And here I'm just like trying to push with like Muck, and if I got like a Fire Blast burn there, then all of a sudden like that's something. But you know, I tried to push with Muck. I tried to push, and I just had to sacrifice at that point. And I'm like, well, Ampharos has got to go because it's just not made the progress that I needed it to. And well, Golduck is a threat here, like Hydro Pump, but then there's like Vileplume. The Lanturns, burn 2 Sleep Turns, it can take a couple Hydros, and so on. So, it's a threat, but, in comes Lantern, and do I stay in? Like, Hydro Pump doesn't 2-hit KO. 4 turns is not like that bad. And I'm like, I can't go to Mutt. I can't go to Mutt because say in comes Aggron again, and then I'm having problems. So no, I had to bring in Meganium instead. Like, I can't put on the pressure. I need to heal my Pokemon up so that I can like respond to his pressure. And like, there's like where that little like tug of war comes from, and then I get like a little bit unlucky here. I go for like the power flinch. Like, even though this does like so much, like all of these attacks are doing so much to Vileplume, but like that Giga Drain recovery, the leftovers recovery, and all of that is just like adding up. And it's only used for Giga Drains, but it's just been able to heal up because I've needed to heal up, and that's what's going on. I hope this like video is like interesting. I don't know, like probably like the best players will not like get so much out of this one. Maybe newer players will. But yeah, like in retrospect, I'm like, well, this was like a really good game. It was a really good game, but is it? It's not maybe like the most fun to watch. Maybe it'd be fun to watch something like this live and just like understanding like. Not just like understanding what's going on like live, but also like having like the live times, like seeing how long like thinking and like all of that. And in the end, I'm just fishing for burns. I'm like completely losing here, and I have to go for something. I have to go for anything. I have to go to somehow make like a Golduck streak possible, to make something with Muck possible. I have to go for like this chance to fire off Hydros, but like that Lantern, it's as healthy as it was before almost, but it's burned another turn of sleep, and I can go to Muck and then just like getting even more recovery. And yeah, it's interesting to see like when you've got like no spikes up as well. This is like what can happen as well. It's just no damage was sticking this game. Like eventually Pokemon fainted, but it took so long, and it was difficult. So yeah, as you saw sort of like from the first video that I did about like these games, the whole tier isn't like this. The whole tier is pretty you can get slow games like this, but mostly they go a bit quicker, even like the small games. But yeah, just like look at that. Just what an absolutely tight game. It's like manic game. I guess a show off his full moves. Well, I guess a show off Crunch there. And we had like a massive chat as well in this one. If I had a Frudazi as well. Wow, that sounds like a funny saying, isn't it? Frudazi was sort of in the match as well. Oh, there we go. It's time intentionally. You can see there, it feels like he got lucky, but he didn't really. He just played well for the most part. There was the mistakes were earlier on and weren't really capitalized on, and what made this game great for me was just the experience of playing it. Just have you ever had those games where you and your opponent, and you're well matched, got these teams that give you like a bit of time to like really try and eke out every advantage, but it's not easy. It's not easy, and then you're just like locked in like this intellectual battle, and every turn things are switching, and you're just like under this pressure. Like, how do I push? How do I hold back? What do I need to do to stop them pushing? Just like it's just so much fun. Pokemon's so much fun. Like it really is. When you get like a game like this, it like reminds you like what's so great about Pokemon. It's like it's at its best. It's just like this intellectual struggle. It's everything. It's the team building. It's the playing. It's the like there is the luck, but it's making your own luck as well. Like understanding like when you need to predict, how to put on the pressure, how to give yourself chances. And it's a beautiful game. At its best, it's just truly a beautiful game. And Advanced 50, I feel like is a meta game with like a lot of potential for that kind of game as well. Just like how well balanced it is, how varied it is. We brought two spikes as teams that's still like very different. The only Pokemon that was on both teams was Aggron. Um, Otherwise, they were completely different teams, completely different strategies. Well, fairly different strategies. Yeah, we ended up like this. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the game, and I'll paste the importables down below and the replays. And yeah, I don't feel like it was my best commentary because it really has in this case. Like, or in retrospect, maybe it's not so much fun to watch. It was just fun to play, and like I don't hear it like maybe as much as like I used to, but maybe it's a matter of where I am. But like it's always been the case. It probably always will be the case that Pokemon players are just like these massive whiners who love to complain about luck every single bloody game, and just like take a step back and enjoy the game and don't get frustrated at the luck. And when you like really think about the game deeply, there's just like all of these layers, all of this depth, all of this intrigue in this game. It's just a beautiful strategy game, and those luck elements, they give you a chance, whatever's the matchup, almost whatever the matchup gives you a chance. It gives you something to play for. It makes it so that you don't feel defeated just like straight away. It's just, yeah, enjoy how deep this game is. Don't go, damn, like Hydro missed that, just like ruined my day. Just be like, appreciate just like, how, what it takes to get to that point where you're playing for, to get that Hydro Pump hit. Just enjoy the game, and that's like what makes this Immortal for me. Maybe it's like more of a personal experience, is that it reminds me this is what Pokemon was all about. It's about that struggle. It's about that battle. It's about, you and your opponent really just testing each other. And I hope that you play games like this. Hope that you play games that you like enjoy, make you think. And I hope that you play Advanced 50 and get more games like this yourself, and don't just sit there, click. Oh damn, X bit of luck. Why is this always happening to me? Sit there, think about the game, appreciate it deeply, and it's rewarding. It is a rewarding game. Plus, it's like a beautiful like aesthetic game as well. Like, I think we talk enough about just like a big part of why we play Pokemon is because damn, these Pokemon are so beautiful, and like well done, Game Freak, for that. Just look how beautiful like Crawdaunt Sprite is, like the star on its head and the crab, and it's just they're lovely, and that adds something as well. It's not just like this dry intellectual game. It's a beautiful visually as well as like mechanically. So that's my video. I've rambled on for about an hour. I am told that with like the plethora of BKC fans in this joint, that probably nobody's got a problem with that. I just hope that it was like an entertaining game. And I hope that my commentary like added something as well. It can be hard to like commentate on games as well. Much as I don't like Callus, and I'm like happy to throw shade at Callus, it's like not like anything personally here. I mean, I don't particularly like enjoy his commentary, but I do sort of respect that like it's hard to present a game and like go like into depth and to like understand like exactly what's going on. Like, you don't just need to have like the knowledge, like the deep knowledge, like how like almost every Pokemon works in the tier and like how it's interacting, like how the different styles are interacting and what's key, like that. But then not just like that, but to communicate it as well and make it engaging. It's it can be tricky, but I think what counts almost is like trying is, I didn't just like sit here and go, oh look, Aggron switched in. Oh, what's his last? Oh, it's Crawdaunt. Like whatever, like just trying to provide insight rather than just describing what's going on. It's like watching a chess game. You don't go like, oh, Magnus Carlsen, like Jan Nepomniachtchi, like moved his pawn to h5. Okay, you go like, well, maybe it sets up these moves, and like maybe it's like, oh, well, this is like a novelty, and what's his idea, and this like the structure's like pretty symmetrical, and like if you know anything about the chess world, I'm just like referencing like the world championship game they played today, where he played like a novelty with like a h5, and then just like I won't spoil the result, but it was a game. It was a game of chess. But it's I think that we should also like look a little bit at what the chess world's doing. So right, it's as a competitive game, chess is way bigger than Pokemon, even though Pokemon itself is probably like a bigger game when you consider every aspect of it, like the anime and like the casual fans and everything. Um, but like watching like their analysis, and, like watching like how the best players like discuss, like analyze lines, and like understand those things, and like some of the terminology as well, like the inaccuracies and the blunders and the danger levels and outposts and whatever. Like much of that can be like retrospectively applied to Pokemon, and I think we need to look like a little bit more outwardly, like what other communities do, and see what we can learn from them. Like probably like stuff we can learn from like the Yu-Gi-Oh community, and maybe like other card games. Like those are just games that I have like a bit of experience with. I'm not great at either of them at all. Pretty bloody useless at both of them, to be frank. But 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 there's still like stuff we can learn from them, like in terms of like helping people understand the game, appreciating like the depth of what's going on, and analyzing things, discussing, all those things. Um, yeah. All right. I've really rambled on long enough. I hope that we see more like high quality games like this one. Maybe some shorter ones, because I know this one's gone on for a long time. Maybe some shorter ones. Maybe ones where we can like really analyze, or like, well, could he have gone for like this line or that line, or you know, I don't know. I just trying to enjoy like analyzing these games as well. It can be like a bit of a headache, but when you feel like maybe I should like some of these like conversationally even as well, like, with somebody. I mean, that could be fun. Maybe it's like a bit hard to set up, but um, where do you analyze games together, which like you might do if you're like like playing like major team tours or whatever. That's pretty fun as well. Um, but it's when you really try and think about Pokemon, you realize how like instantly, extremely deep and complex it is. Like all the probabilities as well. It's hard to take shortcuts. Like there's one thing to predict, or like this thing or that thing, like what happens when I go down this slide. It's another thing to be like, well, actually, there's this chance of a critical hit, and this chance of a poison, and this chance of a full power, and then all of a sudden this thing that like it feels like, oh, this Pokemon has an advantage against the other, or maybe it's actually under like 48% that you get what you want out of it anyway. And there's just it's easy to forget stuff like critical hit chances, and like how they impact things. And I think especially when you play newer gens, you're kind of taught to like ignore every secondary effect chance is not at least like 30%. You're sort of like meant to say like, well, that's hacks. Like whatever, he got a crit, that's so BS. He got a freeze. Oh my goodness, like that's so. But like if you play like, I mean, this is kind of like the beauty of playing RBY. Is like I'm just going on like tangents and like talking. I hope like that's something that you like. Probably would have clicked out otherwise if you don't. But like in RBY, the game is just so raw. You've only got so many options. I think things are like expanded a bit like in the past few years, like some different structures. But to an extent, the game is so raw. You appreciate like how there's these moments of luck on every turn, and like they're defining. But also, just because you got frozen, just because you got slept, just because you missed an explosion, just because of that doesn't mean the game is over. You keep fighting. You keep like playing the game to the death. Just like try and understand things, and just bring that level of mastery where your opponent, even if they do win, they look like the worst player as well. Just like you have to RBY teaches you about appreciating the impact of luck, and appreciating how crucial probability management is to the game of Pokemon. In fact, that's like almost what the game is. there's the team building, of course, first, and then there's the predictions, but there's also the probability management and like the overall plans. Like there's so many elements, but it's a core one that a lot of players have, and a lot of players always will just brush off, and they'll use Hydro Pump, and they kind of will play it as if it will always hit, and it won't, and then they'll get mad about it, and that's it's what that move does, and you kind of have to be at peace with that and understand that, like, well, if you're using this, you're going for this approach, then you might end up in an end game where you've only got like a 64% chance to win because you need to hit 2 hydros or something like that. Yeah, that's Pokemon. All right, I think I really wanted to get this out, and I knew it was going to be a long one. So I hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.